Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Mike Douglas, and we're here for another episode of some DevOps live coding. So, again, my name is Mike Douglas, solution consultant for a company called Deliveron Consulting Services. We're part of Greenhouse Data. And there's my blog, Microsoft MVP. You can reach me on Twitter at the same alias here, Mike Douglas Dev. Always happy to chat, and we're going to get started here with the next episode. So kind of how we do things here is we're doing some basically live coding, and if you're looking for some really, I'd say, nice, smooth canned demos, this is not that. At least these series are not. I kind of have things broken into like a learning series, a demo series. The demo series, yes, I have a lot of stuff I can demo that done lots of times. But with these learning series, I'm learning right alongside you guys. So this is kind of fun, I think. So far, feedback's been good. If you guys would rather just have canned demos, let me know. Happy to do that too. So today's topic, and I'll show you how we kind of figure this out. This is my GitHub account, github.com/MikeDouglasDev. And on there I have a repo because every show needs a repo, right? Where it has the information about my Twitch show. There's my channel, or Twitch channel there. Then I have a project board. Excuse me. The project board is really where I'm going to be building the backlog of our topics for the additional shows. In this case, we just wrapped up some YAML best practices yesterday. Those shows are, I believe, still all on Twitch, but also on YouTube. So check them out either place. Today's topic is actually creating a Azure virtual machine scale set. And so if you're not familiar with this, today you have really two options when you're hosting, when you want to run any of your builds or deployments or pipelines, or automated tests for that matter, is you can either use what's called the Microsoft hosted agents, which are basically a set of agents that Microsoft completely manages. So you just basically queue a new build, and then Microsoft will essentially pop the top VM available for you right off the stack. You have that for your build. It will you'll be able to use it, and then once your build is done, it basically destroys that VM and recreates it and puts it back in the queue for other users to use it. So it's a really easy way to basically have your builds, and you get so many free minutes. You could also buy hosted agents, and you're basically paying for concurrent builds at that point. They're fairly reasonable. I don't remember the exact cost, but it's like $40 a month or something like that, which is nice. So those have been very popular. Your other option is to basically run a self-hosted agent, which would mean probably the biggest use case of that is you've got an organization where you need to actually deploy something to an on-prem server. And so those hosted agents won't have access unless you open firewalls, which I'd highly not recommend. Wouldn't have access to like any of your on-prem resources. So what you do is you take a virtual machine or physical machine for that matter on-prem and install the agent there. And then that agent you can give access to your your target servers, like your production web servers, or wherever you want to deploy to. That machine then can have access to it. So a couple pluses and negatives, like the hosted or the self-hosted agents, the one you have on-prem, you have to control the software. So that's a downside. One of the nice things about the hosted agent, Microsoft does a really good job of keeping those up to date. So they'll basically be putting new versions of like Node, Java, .NET framework, basically all the things you need for your build, they'll continue to put on there. And there's a really good list. Actually, we'll probably pull that list up here because I think we're gonna either this is gonna take a really long time to do, and we're gonna be waiting, or it's going to go really fast. We'll have like a 10-minute show. So I'm gonna add that to this list here. So basically, yeah, let's look at what's on the agent. I think that'd be good there. So those are our two options today. If you check out the latest release notes, so This is actually really cool. If you come out here, you have the Azure DevOps release notes. They basically have for every sprint. So if you're not familiar with Azure DevOps, they're on 3 week sprints, and every 3 weeks they're basically releasing new features, which is pretty awesome. And they've been doing that, gosh, for 4 years now, 5 years. So they've been doing a really good job of getting on that cadence and basically doing that. I wish all my projects if we deployed features every 3 weeks to production. So what's nice though is after every sprint there, this date here, gets a little bit tricky, and I think they probably explain it better than I probably will. But this is, even though like this is the end date, this isn't necessarily when it will light up on your instance. Some of these things have been deployed for a long time, and they're turning on feature flags, whereas some of these things are just now being deployed when they show up here. So it takes the next 3 weeks to essentially get through all of the stages or rings. Yeah, the rings. I'm sorry, they call them rings. So get through all the rings of what they're deploying to. So they have some rings that are earlier than others. And so that is kind of where it's at. I did check to make sure I had that functionality. I don't know if everybody does, but in my case, I do. So let's just kind of go through here. So it's nice as they break it out by all the different areas. So there's this new parent work item filter, which I think would be pretty handy for if you're managing your agile projects in Azure DevOps, which you should. Yeah. So, but Azure pipelines, there's a couple of things. Well, we've got a new 2004 image, Ubuntu. That's good there. And then support for the GitHub packages. So I was kind of looking at that one too a little bit. Here, though, the one we're going to look at is this preview of the scale set agents. And this gives a little bit more information about this. But essentially, what this is going to allow us to do is kind of create a hybrid of the best of both worlds, if you will. So one of the downsides with the hosted agents is we don't know the IP addresses of those. And so if we want to actually deploy to a machine that is either whitelisted or on a private network, we can't really do that. Whitelisting, we've got a couple workarounds for that. You can actually like look up the IP address of the machine once, with like a PowerShell script. And then whatever you're trying to deploy to, you can add that IP to the whitelisting, do your deployment, and then remove it. So that's kind of a nice little trick there. But generally though, you can't, like, those are, like if you're on a private network, you wouldn't have access from those machines. So in that case, it'd be really nice to have our own VM. But if you create your own VM, you have to manage all the software. So how I understand this, and we'll definitely test this out, is this is going to be the same image that Microsoft uses on their hosted agents. Now we have in our own VM scale set as our own agent. So that'll be really cool. There's also a few other things, for considerations. Here's the whitelisting one I just mentioned, but also if you need more horsepower, those hosted agents are not the speediest machines. So we'll kind of see how that works. Partition parallel jobs. So yeah, so again, if you're using your own agents, like to host multiple ones, you'd have to create multiple VMs. And what's nice about these will shut down. So this should be a lot more cost-effective way of hosting your own agents. So it'll be good. So that's what we're going to do today. I don't know if anybody's on, but feel free to say hi. Hopefully we got a couple people on. If you have questions, though, let me know. Any questions so far? All right, let's jump right in. Again, I don't know how long this is going to take. I've never done this before, but definitely excited about this as an option because it definitely fits a sweet spot of where some people need this. So here's again going through. This is the documentation here. under the managing agents. Um, Here's some good reasons why you might want it. Um, and we'll go through all those, kind of talked about them. So this is interesting too. We can't do the Mac agents. Hopefully they'll enable that, but I don't know. Since those really aren't VM scale sets, I don't know. Those are like real Mac machines somewhere. Um, this only works for Windows and Linux, so that's probably will be the case, I imagine, unless Microsoft knows some tricks there too. But whereas will probably only be Windows or Linux, but that's pretty cool. We can do both. And I think I just skimmed through this to make sure we've got everything. And yeah, it looks like we're gonna basically create a Ubuntu VM image there. All right. So looks like the first thing we need to do is go to the shell. Let's see if we can do something like this, and then do something like that. That almost worked. There we go, that's a little better. All right, so now we've got here, now it said go to shell dot, but I think we can just click on the cloud shell right here. If you've not used the cloud shell, it's actually really cool in Azure. Basically, it's like your own little Linux machine. You can do Bash or you can do PowerShell. This is what you need to. And then it has a storage account. So you can actually persist things across multiple runs there. But it's really nice because all the software you need is installed on there. So like if you're doing like Kubernetes stuff, like kube controls there, AKS, all the stuff's there we need to run. So, all right, so let's run the phone to verify your default Azure subscriptions. So this is good. This is actually a little tricky one for me, so we may be dead in the water pretty quick because this account, oh cool, all right. We only have one showing. Sometimes I've had issues where it's actually been kind of confused about which subscription to use. And so I've had some trouble there, even doing this here where I'm setting it. So I just have one that's set, so we're good there. Everything's good. So the next thing we want to do is create a resource group. Looks like we're going to do the West US, so we'll just go ahead and follow right along with what they're going to do. You can see here these slashes also make it multi-line now. I'm not a Bash expert, but copied and pasted enough commands in here to kind of realize that. So we're going to create a resource group, which if you're not familiar with resource group, it's just a container for your services you're creating in Azure. And it's going to be called VMS S agents. Probably VM scale set agents, if you will, there. Then it usually gives you back a little bit of JSON for the response. And there is our, it's basically saying it's been created. Now we want to create our scale set here. I don't think, looks like everything's hard coded, so we can just keep it pretty easy. Looks like we don't have to come up with a uniquely named name for our VM, so that's good here. Because Azure Pipelines manages the scale set, following requires, so we're disabling the over provision upgrade policy mode manual, load balancers nothing, and our instance count is going to be 2. There we go. We can verify the scale set is, so we don't have to set it to 2, but that's just an easy way to set it. We're going to tear all this down afterwards anyway, so looks like that makes sense. I don't see really anything. We're creating Ubuntu. We're using a D2 v3, which the Ds are kind of the pretty, I think they're the solid state, fairly consistent ones. We definitely want solid state because we want the fast speed, because I think disk is probably the biggest need for this. So we'll go ahead and create this part. I don't know how long it's going to take, so let's see here. Creating the 2Ms takes several minutes. All right, so this will take a couple minutes. Well, let's actually switch over to here, because actually here is the information on the hosted agents. Here's the self-hosted for Linux. So we'll actually go here. And then what's nice is we can actually look to see where's that list of all our operations. Oh, that's self-hosted. Sorry. Hosted. And then down here we go. So I don't remember which one we're creating, but let's just assume we're creating the 1804. We can actually come here. You can see for our YAML, it's either Ubuntu latest or we can specify the version. But what's really nice is they have the link. So these are all the different Azure Pipeline hosted agents they have out there. We can actually come here, look on the link. And then here's all the software that's actually installed on there. So quite a few things. And you know, if you don't have something on here, you can always use, well, I'm not the Linux guy, but I assume we can use like the Linux install tool. And we can actually install any additional tools like once it's created. Obviously that takes a little bit of time, but you can definitely see there, or it takes a little bit of time, but you can still do it if you need it, which is nice. So we're still running, but that's the software. A couple of things. So we're still pretty far up on the list here, but most of this is going to be installing it. We can come down here, look at some of the FAQs. So one thing to note, this is in preview, so it might change a little bit. All right. Looks like we're good there. So we'll come back up to that in just a second. This was one question I had. What about custom software in this size? So there are some options here. I only kind of skimmed through it, but it looks like you kind of have to like create an image and basically create this managed disk, and then you can choose that, I believe, as like your source. One of the things I saw in here though is like the actual, it doesn't look like you can use Microsoft's hosted agent image to start with. There's some licensing considerations apparently. But you can get the scripts to do it. This is not, I tried this once and failed big time. It uses this tool. Here, I'll just come over here. I tried the Windows one, but the scripts, I forgot the tool they used for this, but it was maybe come back up here and there's a readme. There we go. But yeah, you can create your own image from this. Well, we won't go too far off it, but it was definitely not as easy as I was hoping. There was a pretty long process that had to be done to create those. So I gave up and just kept using the Microsoft one. All right, so let's see here. It looks like we lost our spot. All right, so let's go back up now to where we were. So this created it here. So select any, okay, so we could have changed it if we wanted to. Again, Microsoft's telling us they can't give us the image. So after that, we can now go into the Azure portal and verify some settings. Cool. Let's do that. Let's drop this down. And then let's go to, pretty sure I don't create a whole lot of virtual machines. Virtual machine skill sets. I don't create a lot of virtual machines. Most everything we do is PaaS related. So I'm not as familiar with all this. So anyway, so there's our scale set, and they wanted us to go verify the policy. There it is, manual. Again, they're going to create that. So they're going to be doing the scaling for us. This is also set to manual. So kind of typically this would not be how you'd want to configure a scale set, because we really want the scale set to be kind of managing itself. But in this case, Microsoft's going to manage it. And there is a little write-up on this, kind of saying how they do it, which is kind of interesting. So, but in this case, we'll just let them do it. And then now we can go back to Azure DevOps and actually manage our pool. So let's kind of keep the two windows going. Oh yeah, here, we'll keep that open. We'll launch a new tab there. Okay, so what's it say to do? We need to go to our project settings. I believe this is, yeah, under project settings. So we'll have to do this for every project. Come down here to the agent pool. We'll add our pool. Here we can choose if we want an existing or new. I believe we choose new. Not the best at following directions here. So we can choose new, we can choose type. There is our option again. This is in preview, virtual machine skill set. And then select our Azure subscription. We already have our subscription configured. With that, we can choose our skill set. Not following the directions very well, so let's make sure we're not missing anything. Choose authorize, we've already done that piece. Choose the divider, the skill set from the subscription. We just had the one. We can choose the name, so this would be our Azure hosted agents. Let's just call them Azure self-hosted agents. All right, configure the following options. Maximum number of virtual machines and scale size. Azure pipelines will automatically scale up, but won't exceed that limit. That's pretty cool. 4. Number of agents to keep on standby. So Azure pipelines will automatically scale down the number of agents, but will ensure that there are always that many agents available. If you set this to 0, it will conserve cost, but then I'll have to start. When is that? So that worked great for if you're just doing a few of them. If you, or if you're doing a lot during the day and maybe at night you don't care. But that first person in the morning will probably pay the price of that. But I kind of want to see what that looks like. So we'll go ahead and do 0. Automatically tear down virtual machines after every use. That's interesting. So if that's not checked, that's almost like it will keep your virtual machines over and over, which was interesting because this would actually be kind of nice. One of the downsides we run into a lot is we run into this more when we were building well, it was on the Mac, but building more of a mobile app, but it really, I think, runs into anything where if we're pulling down a lot of like NPM packages or even NuGet packages, it was taking a long time to restore those. And so basically they're like, well, it runs like in 10 seconds on my machine, but it takes 4 minutes on the hosted agent, because the hosted agent starts from scratch every time. I think they do have some of the like most commonly used packages already on there, but in general it has to pull down all those packages, so it does take a really long time to cache those. And if we do have the option to not tear down our machines, we could potentially be caching some of those items there. So that'll be real interesting. We'll keep that going and actually have a really good test for that. I was testing, there's an option to do some caching, and so I added a ton. If you've seen some of the other episodes, my little Angular application has like 10 times as many dependencies as it should, because I was testing some caching stuff. And then we can decide if we want to grant it to all there. So, okay, so we can't preserve our machines who failed runs for diagnostic. So that'll actually be pretty cool when that's available. So yeah. And that's another downside to the hosted agents, is like if it fails, that machine's gone. We have no idea. One of the nice things, if you have your own hosted agent, you can actually go on the machine, potentially see what happened. So you have to basically log everything if you don't. So That'll be nice to be able to actually do that too. There, all right. So I think we're good to go and create. Does it look like I missed anything? I don't think so. It'll probably tell us if we do. Yeah, let's make this 3. Poor. All right. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of real estate here. There we go. So there, so now using it, we similar to any other agent pool. Awesome. That we can use in the classic build, release, or YAML pipelines. That's awesome. User permissions. When making changes directly to the scale set, yeah. So we definitely don't want to make changes to the scale set. Oh yeah, so here's the kind of the write-up on how it actually manages and does the scaling. So there's a lot of detail here. I just skimmed through it, so I'm not going to try to act like I understand everything it said. But they do a really good job of explaining that, even some kind of examples here. So we'll come back. All right, so we actually have that set up. So let's go look at one of our builds. So this will actually work out really nice. I actually want to look at, that's such a weird view. Let's look at this ng6 user PR because that is just a build, and well, it's more than a build. It actually runs a couple other things, but that's perfectly fine. That'll be interesting. So there's our VM agent there. I don't know how to choose our machine because it didn't really say. Well, let's just try. So, I mean, there's a couple things. Well, let's just try. Let's open up these settings in a new tab. Let's come back down to our agent pool. So by default, we choose agent pipelines. And when you come in here to the pipelines, you've got the different agents we can choose. In this case, though, we're going to just have our Azure self-hosted agent. And let's just see what this looks like. So it doesn't look like we have any at this point. Let's see what other settings we have. All right, there's me, security, and then, oh, that's cool. So we can actually, some of those settings that we chose at the beginning, right there. Oh, and it probably, we don't have any right now because I chose 0 as the default. So, well, let's see. So this first one's going to probably take a really long time. And then after that, it should go faster. So let's just choose here for the VM image, which I have no idea if that's the right thing, but we can, I won't be able to do that. So we will basically do VM skill set. We are new, we'll just call it branch. And we don't need to start, yes, we do want to start a pull request because it's a pull request build. All right, let's see if that kicked it off. And hopefully that kicked it off. Remote provider was unable to process this request, so. Okay, so it still thinks that's from the Azure Pipelines pool. All right, so since we don't know exactly what to do, let's just choose a new pipeline. And we'll see, so this is a node. Let's look at the agent. Okay, so that didn't really tell us there. So my other sneaky, hopeful way to do this, we'll do a new pipeline. We'll use the classic editor. And then, yeah, we'll choose all that. We'll choose, doesn't really matter what we choose. really see Angular in here at all, but we'll just create an empty job because I don't really need the tasks. All right, so here in our pipeline, let's choose our pool. So our pool will be this. And go from there. So I think at that point we have the pool selected. Let's see if we can save this. Sure. And then I believe we have add job. So I was looking for a place where we can actually export our YAML. I thought we had a way. To export that. There we go. I don't think this is going to be quite what we're wanting to do, but no, this is definitely not helpful. All right, what we should have done is just look to see well, that is cool here. It actually says you can actually, how do I configure them to run UI tests? That'll be interesting. Can you do that? This time we don't have the ability. This is planned in the future. Well, that's cool. So that's good at least. All right, so it does not show us what it's actually going to be called. So let's expand this again. And I think we can manage agents. We want to choose the pool. Actually, it'd be probably in the, let's search for YAML schema, Azure DevOps. This is a pretty good link here. And then pool. And then here, we should have just looked it up. So let's choose the pool name. But that's why we do this. Excuse me. All right, so we definitely didn't need to create that guy. Come in here, let's edit. And instead of pool, oh, that's because we're still in the master. There we go. So here now, so we're gonna have to paste name. Just double check. YAML schema. So pool for the agent pool. So the name of the so you only use the VM image if we're talking about the hosted agent. So in this case, our name should be significant or enough. Save, we'll go ahead and commit it directly there. Now if we come back to our pipelines, we should see this building. All right, it's queued, which makes sense. Let's kind of do this again. Let's look at our well, there's a couple things we could look at. Yeah, here. Agent request is not running because all potential agents running other requests, which not really running, but we just don't have any out there. And so I think if we actually looked here, instances, no results. There we go. So it's creating our image. Again, we chose 0. If we would have chosen 1, we probably would have been going instantly. But that's okay. Because the next time we go, it should be really fast. But this is definitely the cost-effective way. So yeah, I don't know. This might. So the reason it said it would take a while probably was whether or not we're actually creating, or if we was actually creating those images when we were waiting, then that would take longer. So let's see what it looks like from this perspective. Because when we looked at the jobs, it said it didn't have any. Let's collapse. Oops. Guess we can't expand that. So we have one job there. Agents. So again, doesn't look like it knows about our first agent yet. Which makes sense because we're still in the creating mode. And we're still there. So couple of things I'm pretty interested. I assume we're gonna have essentially the same as virtual image as like what we looked at with all the software installed. If we just had a blank VM, that would not probably be a very good experience. So I assume we'll have that, and again, looks like we can make our own image if we want. Virtual, whoops, that's not what we want. There we go, we'll keep it here. Let's refresh it, see if we've got anything showing up yet. All right, look at that, online, cool. There our build started, nice. There it ran, install a node. All right, so this is the one that should take a little while. I'm really curious. I think this takes up to a month, or a month, oh my gosh. I think this takes up to a minute. To run that, while we're waiting for that. That's interesting, still shows, oh, there it is running, nice. So that didn't take too long actually. You know, somebody obviously had to wait a couple minutes. But from a cost perspective, you know, like all those will be shut down, you know, during the night, and then when the first person comes in and kicks off the build, you know, that's not a too terribly much tax to pay. All right, so we're about done here. Again, like I mentioned, this takes a little while, but again, this will be a really cool test to see, because we're not destroying the VM after every run, because these are our own machines, that that feature is really there for more privacy and security, right? We don't want somebody else to see our last build, but if it's within our organization, it's probably not as big deal. All right, you can see here up to minute 20. I think it shouldn't take too much longer. But again, this is a different VM, so I don't know. I've only ran it on the hosted agents. All right. So it looks like now it's actually doing the building part. Some fun warnings. And it's still going. All right. It's like any demo, right? It'll always takes longer when I'm trying to show people. I want to actually come back over here real quick though. No, not here. Oh, they're finished. Oh, this is the other thing I wanted to see. So we actually are running white source bolt in this. So I just wanted to make sure that would work, which looks like it can. I mean, it should, because it's just pulling down, like in the initialize, it actually pulls down all the agent tasks. White source bolt's an extension that will basically check to see if there are any third-party vulnerabilities with this. It does take a little bit longer to run. Because it's looking through every file, but that's okay. Yeah, we're up to about 3 minutes. So here again, there's details. I don't know what. Okay, it took me right into the job, which is fine. And there's our build, or we're still running there. Should have just disabled bolt. I didn't think it was going to take that long. All right, so still within under 4 minutes. Not too bad. Great, so that's done. Everything looks normal. Success. Perfect. All right, so let's try this. Let's make sure now our, oh yeah, I'm gonna come back here to our job there. It looks like, oh, that's the job. Agent, online, idle, perfect. So let's kick this off one more time, and I'm curious now if it's going to be faster. Because I'm hoping all those items are cached. I assume it's still just the same VM. Yep. So yeah, it won't be until I actually try to run two things at once before. All right, so here's the install. So it should hopefully just scan there. Look at that. Nice. I think. Well, we don't know for sure yet. We're not much faster here. But we won't wait for the bolt to run. I just wanted to see this. I think we're at like a minute 30 before, so I'll have to look into that a little bit more, because I would have thought that would have gone a lot faster. Well, we were a few seconds faster anyway. It saved about 20 seconds. So I think it did skip that, or it was able to cache it, but it must just be, it took longer to build. All right, well, that's pretty cool. It didn't tell me how to remove this, but we'll look at doing that. I don't know if there's anything else really to show here. But I think there's our two jobs. The one that ran and the one that's still running. So I think that is about it. Any questions at all that you have? Anybody on there? Any questions of when you'd use this over the other ones that maybe I missed? Or any scenarios you thought of? All right. Well, hopefully that helps, and hopefully that gives you an idea of when to use this. This looks like it. This looks very promising for an option. Again, with these scale sets, I don't know this, by the networking piece here, we can actually use the subnet that these machines are on, and actually add these to our VNet, or not add them, but include them in our VNet, And even when we provisioned it, we probably could have specified the VNet and subnet that these were being created in. And then this, we'd have access to any of the private resources, could even go through our VPN and have access to our on-prem items. So that again is one of the really big benefits to this. So we're done about 15 minutes early, no problem, right? Everybody can start playing around with this and go provision their own. So thanks for joining. Have a great day, great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. And we'll probably, let's actually look at that real quick. We'll probably come back here. One and done, that's pretty nice. I'll probably wait on this one a little bit. Keep that there. I've been doing some research on the MX chip. We're doing that. The biggest thing you just need to make sure is we can, I kind of want to be able to show it with a camera, so we'll maybe see there. So maybe the next one we'll look into is our load testing with JMeter. We had been using the Visual Studio Load tools quite a bit. JMeter, those have been deprecated now in Visual Studio 2019. So our teams have been switching over to use JMeter. There's a couple gaps I think I still have in my mind that I want to just kind of work through. So that will be what we'll tackle next. So thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you tomorrow hopefully. Thanks.